WMNJ.com and the Star Ledger welcome to the Rutgers Rant, your one-stop podcast for the Scarlet Knights, with your hosts Steve Politti and Rutgers insiders Brian Fonseca and Pat Lenny. Let's start chopping.
All right, everybody, welcome back to the Rant. We're all here. Week 2 preview game. Fellas, it's like you get a do-over. If you didn't like what happened in your first MAC game against a team from Ohio, damn it, we're going to cue it up again. Fill the stadium. Bring us another MAC team from Ohio. Ohio to Miami of Ohio. I don't know. Any other MAC? Toledo can get them in here next. Youngstown State. Are they in the MAC? Kent State. Man.
Akron, they played last year.
Yeah, there you go. Just keep on macking it up until we get this right. So let's talk about it. And I guess that's what week 2 for me is going to be, right? Like we saw what this team is capable in week 1. We also saw what it didn't do well in week 1. So this is a very different MAC team, a very different style of play in Miami, much more defensively focused. What do you want to see from this team most of all, guys? What is the one thing that you think they need to put on the field to show that this season might be better than we think it's going to be?
Well, I think the overarching point is obviously you want to see better defense. And if there is a get-right game possible in the non-conference, this is it. Miami, Ohio played Wisconsin, which under Luke Fickell has not been the juggernaut it used to be. And I want to just read you off some offensive stats they had against the Badgers. And what was a 17-0 loss. Miami went 0 of 9 on third down. They punted 8 times in their first 8 drives, and meaning they had more punts than first downs. They had 7 first downs. They went 3 and out 4 times. They threw 2 picks, albeit at the end of the game when they're just desperately chucking it around, trying to get anything going when they're down 2 scores. Their quarterback went 9 of 18 for 83 yards. And as a team, they rushed for 34 yards on 22 carries, which is 1.5 yards per carry. So unless, the Wisconsin defense is the greatest defense that you've seen in the past 10 years of college football, I think this Miami of Ohio offense is very mediocre. And we can dive into the areas I want to see the defense in better, but I think that what everyone wants to see from this defense is a lot better than what we saw against Ohio.
Yeah. I'll give you one specific thing I want to see, Politti. Right out of the gate, I want to see a 3 and out from the defense and look imposing. Stuff a run on first down, stuff a run on second down, get off the field in 3 plays. That's what I want to see if you're a Rutgers fan. Just some emphatic defense to say we're going to set the tone early in this game, and that performance from a week ago, we're putting it in the rearview mirror.
Yeah, that would certainly be a good statement for me. I mean, I need to see this defensive line look more like a Big Ten defensive line, which I didn't really see that in the opener. That's the biggest concern I had. They feel good about it. They think they rebuilt it. They think they're going to have a decent pass rush. All right, if we don't see it this week, then there are major concerns for me. Like we got to get these guys. We got to get O'Neal, Weaver. We're going to get these guys at the quarterback. We need to get some sacks. We need to be in the backfield a lot more than they were in Ohio. They were blocked well against Ohio. I mean, things that you could just tell that this, all right, that's going to be an issue. If they can't get at the quarterback, this defense is going to struggle against better teams. For me, that's the one thing I have to see in this game. And if you don't, then we're not mashing the panic button, but we're moving it on to the desk for me.
Similar vein, they didn't get 2 things against Ohio that I think are very important to this defensive game better. To your point, they didn't get a single sack, which is, I guess explainable because Parker Navarro is a scrambler and he gets out of trouble. Fine, you can explain that. The guy they're playing this week, DeQuan Finn, is not Parker Navarro, so totally agree with your point. And especially next week against Norfolk State, if they don't compile sacks these next 2 weeks, that'll be a major concern, no doubt. The other thing is takeaways. They did not get a single takeaway, whether a fumble or an interception. That was another major issue last year that they just didn't do enough. And when you don't take the ball away in those big plays, you just give offenses more chances to inflict damage. A big way for the secondary, which outside of Jacoby Henderson had a rough game, the big way for them to bounce back, get an interception, get a pick 6. They started the year with a pick 6 last year, for Christ's sake. Give me something like that, a big game-changing play, or even if it's you're up 48-0 and you get a pick, just something to get the ball rolling on that side.
Yeah. The identity of this defense, Pat, like this, it didn't look like a Rutgers aggressive Greg Schiano ball hawking, pressure, blitzing kind of defense. It sat back for the most part against Ohio. Like, get it, scrambling quarterback, good quarterback. You don't want to put him in a position. I understand the rationale there. still, I guess I want to see some proof that this will be more in line with what we're used to.
I think the word that always comes to mind when I think of Rutgers defense, especially under Shiano, is opportunistic. It's a defense that sets up the offense. It's been the identity to take the ball away, to set up big plays. So without that, I think Rutgers doesn't have a true identity. So you're right. This is the game, as Brian said, to get a few takeaways, to make a few game-changing plays, and you want to see that personally.
Right. Looking at the flip side, obviously loved what you saw from the offense against Ohio, record-setting. You kind of charted all that, Brian, your coverage this week, just what Ethan was able to do against Ohio. It looks like, again, we don't know, but based on 1 week, it looks like Miami is a better defense. You think? Is that what we're thinking?
So the numbers look better, at least as far as they only gave up 17 points. But it's Wisconsin, which is their starting quarterback was the starting quarterback of Maryland last year. He gets hurt in the first half, and then they're playing a backup quarterback. And even still, Wisconsin had 23 first downs. They were pretty efficient on third down. Like, it's not like they completely controlled them and they just didn't score that much. But yes, to answer your point, on paper, I think this will be a better challenge for the Rutgers offense than last week was.
Yeah, it's great. I'm sure there's no conspiracy theory among Rutgers fans that they don't get to play the bad Wisconsin team, right? It's great. I mean, last year they weren't world beaters. I guess they did play them last year and didn't perform well. But
I mean, it was 42-0, wasn't it? What was the score of that game? 42-7?
Wasn't great. Forget what it was,
Right.
but it was certainly, that was not a good performance.
And that was, to be clear, that was the worst Wisconsin team of the 21st century. So they did get to play the bad Wisconsin team. They just
did.
And
Good point.
Their starting quarterback was out at that game too. Let's not rehash the past,
That's right.
let's not pretend they didn't get a crack at the bad.
They
Badgers.
did get a crack. Yeah, they did get a crack. Point well taken. That was the game where I had to sit in the front row and ask Greg, why wasn't your team prepared today? It's always a comfortable feeling. He was ready for it, though, and he knew it. He knew it wasn't prepared. All right. This Wisconsin team, it's interesting where that program is. I mean, everyone thinks that, it's certainly heading in the wrong direction, that this is a must-win season for him up there. Could be. If that's the case, why are we talking about Wisconsin? I forget. Anyway, we're playing Miami. Are we playing Miami?
Wisconsin barely beat Miami of Ohio. That's why we're talking about Wisconsin.
You're confusing me. Stop talking about things that I can't follow my own podcast. All right. I guess offensively, we saw from Rutgers, the passing game was excellent. Rushing game, I don't know what I need to see from this. I guess just do it again, right? Just consistency. It's as simple as that. It was if Ethan is going to be this accurate in completing the ball, Rutgers is going to be, the numbers he threw, 18 to 23. Can he do that again? Can Ian Strong have the same type of game? Can we spread the ball? Can the tight ends get involved in this one? Can they run the ball as effectively? I guess I just want to see, just keep going. Let's make this, let's see the offensive line establish itself in a way I did in the first game. Just another complete effort for me. That I guess that's it.
Yeah, I totally agree. And I think that in an ideal world, they do it the same way they did against Ohio, where they didn't really show much. They threw the ball to their top 3 receivers. They ran the ball with their top 3 running backs. They didn't throw a pass to the running backs. They threw 3 passes to the tight ends. Like, it was very much a vanilla, quote unquote, offense. And it worked really well, right? So if you could do that efficiently without spoiling what else you have in your playbook, right? I'm sure they're going to throw passes to the running back at some point this season. You probably want to do that against Iowa to start, and not against Miami, waste those plays and give Iowa more tape to study. So, for me, I want to see all those things, but I understand why it would be ideal if that doesn't show up for a couple weeks.
Pat, what do you want to see?
Same thing I just said about the defense establishing an identity. Rutgers has an identity on offense that it's going to be methodical, convert the ball on 3rd and 4th down, as we saw last week, run the ball well, hit those open receivers. So good teams have an identity that show up against anybody. So whether it's Miami of Ohio or Penn State, you expect Rutgers to be competitive offensively. And I think that's the biggest thing I want to see, is that this offense is going to translate against anybody starting this week.
So I'd like to see Ethan continue to be accurate. He best completion rate among games he's had with 20, at least 20 passes, 78%. He's not going to throw 78% every week, but the point being, if he could stay in that 60 to 70 range, would be ideal, especially in these games. I want to see Ian Strong continue to get open on every play and just do whatever he wants. Like that was a wide receiver 1 performance against Ohio. I want to see the offensive line hold up pretty well. I mean, they didn't give up. I think they gave up 1 sack. They weren't, the Great Wall of China necessarily, but they were pretty sturdy. I want to see that continue. And the running backs, I want to see Antoine Raymond continue to look like Kyle Monangai Jr. Pass blocking, running the ball hard. And then I want to see 1 CJ Campbell 60-yard rush. I want to see him hit the hole, get into space, and I want to see the open field speed that we talked about on the last pod.
Right. So between the three of us, we want 68 points. Is that what it sounds like? The one thing you mentioned, Ian Strong, and I was thinking about this, like he played in that game and he had single coverage a lot, which was crazy. But he played in that game, just throw the ball up to him and he's going to get it. That's the kind of like it was like a Malik Neighbors kind of game with the Giants. Like there didn't have to be an accurate pass. He didn't have to be open. That is a sign of a really good wide receiver when you've got that ability. You would think that he's going to be in a lot of situations like that again to do it against Miami. I haven't looked at the depth chart Miami, but I want to see that again. Just continuing to establish what this offense can do. I think when you talk to them after the game, there was a sense that they had only scratched the surface of it, which is, an impressive thing to think of, considering the overall numbers and the way they dominated the game. Even in the second half when they didn't score points, they kept the ball away from Miami. They chewed off the last 7 minutes of the clock and they converted the big 4th down. They did just about everything right, but weren't satisfied. So, I mean, let's see if they do it again against another defense, a better defense. So, all right. Should we just jump right into questions? What do you guys think? Let's see what we had a bunch from readers here. As people had time to think about it on the Discord, the Facebook page, Twitter, MySpace. We're on everything, man. We are on every possible place. If you're not at the Discord,
I was going to say a messenger. I was going to make a joke about
AOL Messenger.
AOL Messenger.
My wife and I communicated on AOL Messenger early on in our relationship. That's how old that is. Stu Polite. That was my name. I'm sure you're curious. All right. Here's some offensive questions. Let's go into that. The defense is clearly going to struggle. Can the coaches embrace being a high-scoring team and stop putting the offense into a shell as soon as they're up 2 scores? That in part cost us the Illinois and K-State games last year and almost cost us against Ohio and Virginia Tech, Washington, Minnesota last year. All right, that's an interesting point. I don't know. Do you agree with that? First, do you agree with the premise that they go into the shell too often when they're up?
I mean, they went into a shell against Ohio, clearly, right? They ran the ball a lot more in the second half, but it worked. They chewed the clock up. That was a professional kill the game drive at the end. And I think it's funny that this reader asks, they almost blew the game by doing this against Minnesota, Washington, and what was the other one? Another game they won. They won all those games,
Right.
like
Tech, yeah.
It's a pretty good ratio. What was it? 5 games they won doing that, and 2 they didn't. I get why it's people get nervous about it, right? But I just don't expect, or I don't see this being a team where they're going to keep, they're up 2 or 3 touchdowns and they're like, let's just keep throwing the ball and build on this lead, because Greg Schiano's very, I wouldn't say risk averse. He tries to minimize the risk, and throwing the ball and tempting fate of throwing an interception, a game-changing pick 6 or something, that just doesn't really pick me as a Greg Schiano move. I think he's much more comfortable handing the ball off to Antoine Raymond or CJ Campbell, who also has never fumbled in his career, like Kyle Monangai, and just chewing the clock away, not giving. Because if you give Ohio another drive at the end of that last game, they're going to score, and you don't want them.
How many drives did Rutgers even have in the second half of that game?
3.
3. All right. So one they should have scored a touchdown, ended up kicking a field goal. One they punted, and one they ran out the clock. I don't know.
I agree with the premise. It feels like on the surface, Rutgers plays conservatively, but let's put that into perspective as well of what it took to get this offense to a level where it was capable of competing. It's been tremendous progress, and that starts with fundamental playing between the tackles and not getting too crazy. It's about doing the little things right. So it may seem like a shell in a little bit, but I think it's fundamentally sound football, which is Schiano's identity and what Rutgers really is.
And I think the big thing here, just to remember, is the defense, at least in the first game, did not look good. So more important than piling on points is making sure whatever you do, the defense doesn't have to make another stop. Because, from where I was sitting, that third down, that stop they had in the third quarter before Rutgers' last drive felt miraculous. Like when they finally got a stop, right? Like it was a surprise to me that they didn't get scored on. So when that's the way your defense is playing, it's better to just not give them the ball back if you could do that, you know?
Right. Another offensive point. I assume week 1 was a conservative play call approach. What are some of the biggest things we want to see with the offense as the season progresses? In my opinion, I prefer to see a 4 receiver set instead of tight end in the slot, RB screens, etc. Were they in the 11 formation the entire game? It was just the 3 wideouts, 1 tight end and a running back. Is that?
They flipped between 11 and 12 personnel, so they'd always have at least 1 tight end, sometimes 2, always no more than 3 wide receivers. I don't think they had a single 4 wide receiver set.
Yeah, I don't think that's the best. I think 11 is the best formation for them, especially given what we saw from the tight end last year. I think that's something that's something I want to see in this game. That they feel confident that they've upgraded that position, and certainly it looked like early in the year last year, he was the biggest weapon. So I think we're going to see a lot of that with those 3 guys. They've got 3 pro type prospects at receiver. You're going to want them on the field every play, I think.
And you have 3 versatile running backs. You want to keep them on the field as much as possible too.
Right,
so
right.
I think that's a big part of it.
The one thing Greg said, I guess in press conference, he wants more of Benjamin out there. Is that Jayshon Benjamin? Is that the one thing that's what he wants to see from the team? We haven't mentioned him yet.
Yeah, he wanted to give him more reps. I'm not sure there were enough reps to go around, especially when you're at the end of the game. You wanted to give it more to Antoine Raymond to kill out the clock, or CJ Campbell. Jayshon Benjamin's more of a finesse guy. But I think if they do end up throwing the ball out of the backfield more often, which again I think they will, Jayshon and CJ Campbell are the prime candidates for that. These shifty guys. The tight end thing, I think the big thing for them being on the field is that they help block. Right, they help the offensive line to block and protect Ethan. I think that's way more important to this team than it is them coming out and catching passes. So that's why I think there's 95% of the plays this year there's going to be a tight end or 2, just because this offensive line, while it's been solid, it's not the best offensive line they've had. They need as much help as they can get. So,
correct. All right, defensive questions. Did we underestimate the loss of Mo Toure, especially how late in the cycle it would impact the D? Mo Toure did not have a great game for Miami against Notre Dame. Is that what I'm seeing? He had 4 tackles, didn't get to the quarterback, looked bad in coverage.
Decent game. He blew up. He had a horrible blown coverage at the end of the game that set up Miami's tying touchdown. That's the really bad look. But he also had a big hit on the Notre Dame quarterback. He was fine. He was probably not worth whatever they paid him just yet in that game. Right. But I think if they lost that game, they'd be talking about that blown coverage all week. They won the game, so you can kind of salt over it.
Right. Yeah.
I don't think.
Right. Go ahead, Pat.
I don't think anyone overlooked how much Mo Toure this loss was going to be. The 3 of us were very candid in saying he was. Even Greg Schiano was saying he was the alpha dog of this defense. He's an almost impossible guy to replace. So, if you were a person that thought losing Mo Toure wasn't going to be a big deal, you probably haven't honestly watched enough the last couple of years. He's as good as it was.
And you're in the minority, right? I agree with Pat. I think everyone was kind of like, this is a pretty big deal because it forces Moses Walker, who struggled in a lot last year, right? Frankly, he forces him to be a starter and pretty much the guaranteed second guy, especially with Abram Wright having coming back from surgery last year. Yes, Mo Toure was going to be their best linebacker, probably their best edge rusher, even with these new guys. So it hurts you in multiple ways. I don't think anybody would dispute that was the biggest. And the issue is it was so late they couldn't replace him with a portal guy. They struggled really hard to find a body, so they had to roll with what they had. That is also a big issue.
I also love the point that Dariel Jabome got a great opportunity last year to break out, became a star of the defense. The pairing with him and Mo Toure would have been incredible. I think that would have been something that would have been so huge for this defense because they're great complements of each other from a X's and O's standpoint.
Right. I will say just the one thing I think they missed those experienced guys in the secondary more than they missed Mo Toure in week 1. There's my hot take. That doesn't mean they didn't miss Mo Toure, but didn't like a lot of the things I saw in the secondary against Ohio. All right. Is Schiano going to be more involved in the calling defensive plays this week? Does Sparber have any role in calling plays? I mean, if he does, that's kind of that's a big admission about screwing up in the offseason. I mean, you brought in Rob Smith for one reason, right? Like, he's a guy who's comfortable calling the plays on your defense. Like the whole thing was you needed someone who understood Greg Schiano's defense in that role. And Sparber was going to be the young guy they were going to groom, like an up-and-coming young coach. That was why they brought the co-defensive coordinators in. That was the plan. If you're scrapping it in week one, that's not a good sign. So no, I don't think so. I think he's still got confidence in those guys. And you're also not. I mean, Greg Schiano's not in the offensive meetings, right? Like, he is, whatever involvement he's got game week, he's with the defense. So he's going to be in there building the game plan, and involved on game day as well. I don't think it'll be any more than usual.
I agree. It's impossible for us to know because we're not on the headsets, right?
Right.
I think whatever involvement he had in week one will be roughly the same in week two. To your point, Play, anything otherwise would be a panic move. I don't think they're at a point where they have to panic. And even last year, I know we talked when that defense was struggling through all the injuries and stuff, like, would Schiano get more involved? I'm not sure how much more involved he was in the back end of the year.
Right.
Like, I don't know. I just think this point is a little overblown, and people are panicking a little too much about the defense at this point.
I think people are so hung up on coordinators' positions like that, the implementation of the defense as it was from a game plan and play call. But I think Greg Schiano was accurate when he said that the biggest problems with the defense were fundamentals, people taking wrong angles, bad tackling. I think, like, that's not something that play calling is going to fix or a new scheme is going to fix. It's experience and discipline. And that's, like you said, Politi, the biggest thing, losing those experienced guys in the secondary, losing a Motoré, that it's not necessarily coaching. I think it's more the players on the field.
Right. All right, we
got 2 new players in the secondary, right? They had 2 new safeties, 1 new safety, 2 new corners, new edge rushers, like a lot of new people. Sometimes you just don't know where to be in the first game. I think that's partially explaining what happened.
Right. Yeah. Give them a couple weeks here. If it's bad the next 2 weeks, we know we've got a problem. All right. We got some schedule questions, some kind of random schedule questions that I like, but also just a really basic one. Any feel on which opponents might be better than we thought and which might be worse? Any or updates to season predictions now that we've seen one game? All right. The first point, based on what I saw, there are several bad teams in the Big Ten, and Rutgers is not playing them. That was my analysis. Northwestern's terrible. UCLA's terrible. What did you see otherwise?
I think Iowa's not as good as I thought they were. I think I won't know until they play Iowa State this weekend. Then I'll have a real idea. Again, this is the inverse of, like, do we think that Rutgers is worse now than we did a week ago after watching the defense and the offense? Like, I think it's too small of a sample size to know. I would probably say the same with everyone else. I will say, though, outside of the Big Three, I am not sure I guess Illinois looked pretty good too, but there's no team on the schedule that I don't think Rutgers will beat, right? And in the inverse, Purdue won 31-0. I'm not suddenly thinking that Purdue game isn't a winnable game. Let's not go crazy here,
And do you watch Minnesota at all? When we see them, any sense there?
I didn't catch Minnesota, but I will say, if we're looking at the schedule and expectations and people looking past opponents or undervaluing opponents, maybe the thing that we're going to look back on the end of the season is that people, not us, people outside of the Rutgers Rant, undervalued how good Ohio was. Really? I think we'll see this weekend as a great litmus test. As Brian said last week, West Virginia is going to Ohio in a big game for Rich Rodriguez. They'll be huge favorites, but I think Ohio's going to keep that game. I think Ohio's going to keep that game close.
All right, so we got,
believe it or not, Ohio, I think, is a 4-point underdog at home. Like, it's a single-digit underdog to West Virginia.
Really?
So, like, the Bobcats showed a lot against Rutgers. I'm just saying.
Great transition to this question from Scarlet Burner on X. Should Rutgers schedule West Virginia with Rich Rod back? A continuation of Schiano 2.0's revenge tour. I love it. Yes. The answer to that question is a million times yes. And also, he's not going to do that. But still, that'd be awesome. Bring back the West Virginia series.
Get Kelly Zinn a chance to go back home, visit the Mountaineers, her alma mater.
As long as I don't have to go to Morgantown. That's the only condition I'm making on this.
That's part of the contract. Politi has to go. And he has to drive by himself.
I have to go to State College. No, that's not true. That's not true.
Oh,
I'm sorry,
yes.
Morgantown. No, yeah.
Is it Morgantown just State College, but twice as long away? I've never been, but
Yes, more people are armed in Morgantown. That's the difference. And you get a really good meal at a gas station in Morgantown. Those are the two. You stay in Pittsburgh and Morgantown. So, I mean, you can't stay in, so the hotels are better. Yeah, I'd rather go to Morgantown than State College.
well, wherever they play, whether they're playing Morgantown or Piscataway, I think that if we think about how cathartic the win over Miami was in the Pinstripe Bowl, over Virginia Tech on the road after getting pummeled there so many years, I think finally beating West Virginia after all they inflicted on Rutgers over, in those 20 years in the Big East or whatever, would be the most cathartic thing.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, too little, too late. But I think for longtime Rutgers fans, it would be one of the most satisfying wins of all time. And unlike 20 years ago, like, it's a team they could beat, I think, especially now in this point of the Rich Rod era. So I say schedule a home and home for the next 10 years. I think it would be so much fun.
If you were to rank them, that's funny. Like, I wonder what this is a good point. What would the Rutgers hierarchy be of teams that fans want to beat? Penn State, obviously, that's in put that in a category all to itself. After Penn State, though, is West Virginia next? Because you've beaten Syracuse a bunch of times recently. You've beaten Boston College.
Yep.
I mean, I'm trying to think of who else would be even in the conversation.
It's West Virginia. I can't even come up with one. I would. They had a great series against Arkansas. That was cool, beating an SEC team. I think maybe there's a mid-tier SEC game would be really cool.
You even beat Miami in a bowl. Teams like revenge tour teams. You've won that game. Yeah, I mean, you think West Virginia's got to be Cincinnati, maybe. The fans still pissed off about that.
Cincinnati, though, because they've beaten Cincinnati in the past. Cincinnati in a year where they are like college football playoff potential, and for some reason you're playing them in the middle of the season. They're 9-0. They just beat number 3 at home. Everyone's feeling good, and then you beat the brakes off them. I think that would be the equivalent. But I think West Virginia is miles above everyone else, just because I think those losses live. It was many years too, right? Like I think.
Oh yeah.
Louisville again after what Teddy Bridgewater did to them.
But they went down and killed Louisville in a couple of games too. Like they actually, not the right games, but they still beat Louisville. Man, it's interesting. I don't know.
Yeah.
Here's a question, a related one. Iowa. Why can't we beat Iowa in anything? Is there a mindset or ours? Is it their mindset or ours? They own us in everything. Yeah, I mean, I think, and if you look in the Big Ten, like there's not a university athletic department that has a better grip of what it is than Iowa. That's how I would put it, right? Like you might have said Wisconsin, that kind of lost that thread in the last thing. I think it's Iowa. Like they just understand they've got good coaches. They retained them for a while. I don't know. I mean, it's an aspirational. Rutgers would love to be Iowa.
Wrestling people are freaking out at your comment right now because Iowa can't catch Penn State in wrestling. So other than that, yes, everything is very good in Iowa, but wrestling is stuck at number 2, and there's a giant gap between 1 and 2. Other than that, being extremely spoiled, I think Iowa is in really a really good dream scenario for Rutgers to aspire to.
To be fair to Iowa wrestling, the Penn State wrestling program under Kale is like if you took the 90s Cowboys, the 2000s Patriots, the 2010s Chiefs, and mushed them together into a dynasty. That's what they've been. So it's
but
impossible.
Iowa was also that dynasty at one point in its history. That's the knife in the back for real Iowa wrestling fans, which is like, not to really take this podcast off the rails here with wrestling talk, but you think of like great wrestling states and people come out for like Iowa. That's a must see. Go to Iowa, Hawkeye, Carver Arena to see wrestling. It's like a bucket list thing for sports fans.
Sure. To go back to football, it is Miami Ohio season. I don't want to look too far ahead, but to stick to football, Iowa has beaten Rutgers over the last few years since they've been in the Big Ten for 2 reasons. 1, they're more talented. They've been more talented every time, right? I don't think there's any doubt about that. 2, they do what Rutgers does better in every aspect. Rutgers, until this year or last year, was a team that struggled offensively and was really good defensively. That is Iowa to a T, but on steroids, right? That 2022 game or 23 game, whatever it was, is the perfect example. That game was the most ugly game of football I've seen live, but Iowa just won because they squeezed out a score and they just played elite defense. So this year might be different because Iowa's still Iowa. I still think they're going to have to play elite defense and hope their offense does well enough with this new quarterback. Rutgers is going to have to score a ton of points and hope their defense does well enough. So that's why I think this game might be the best chance they've had against Iowa so far. But that's why Iowa's just dominating Rutgers, is because at least in football.
Last Iowa point, real quick. Think about the guys that Iowa's turned out into the NFL that are superstars right now. Cooper DeJean is a local Iowa kid that came in as a mid-level prospect that turned into one of the best players in college football, now in the NFL. Stud. Caleb Johnson, a running back that just was a monster at Iowa as a true freshman last year that kept feeding him the ball. It's the Rutgers blueprint. That's exactly what Rutgers wants to succeed on the football field.
Great point. Great point. Good Iowa talk. We'll have more Iowa content when the Rutgers actually plays Iowa. All right. Should we do this? Do we really want the podcast to go off the rails? Someone asked us about Hobbs for Hobbs story time. I have it in the notes in the script. It's simply Hobbs story time. It's never a good idea. Here's the question. I can't help but notice that Kelly Zinn and President Tate have been very involved through social media. But zoning in on Kelly, she seems way more involved than Pat ever was with football. Yeah, I think we're headed in that. Yes, I think we're headed in that direction. My question is, how much of a blocker was Pat Hobbs during that Thanksgiving when Greg and Rutgers were speaking, given that he had taken his name out of contention? By the way, those were my favorite episodes when you guys were reporting on the whole drama with that interview process. Please spill the tea. Ooh, how much tea we want to spill. Look, I don't think there's any questions that Pat Hobbs did not want to hire Greg Schiano. I mean, he pretty much, went around tailgates at the time telling people that Greg Schiano was an average football coach. I mean, I've heard this from a million people, and all of that got back to Greg Schiano. What a surprise, right? I mean, there was no question that he entered that process convinced he was going to hire somebody else other than Greg Schiano. Did everything he could to make sure he didn't hire Greg Schiano. And it was other people, you can make the long list of from Phil Murphy to Eric LeGrand, who made it, who made it so that he had to hire Greg Schiano and brought them back to the table. I don't think there's any question that he was, and that affected their relationship from the get-go. And it's one of the reasons why Rutgers is kind of digging out of some of these things that you see. One of the many challenges that Kelly Zinn has, why we're asking her questions that seem so freaking obvious. Like, how are you going to have a relationship with your football coach? Well, of course she's going to have, because she's good at her job. So she's going to come in and right away. What do you need, Greg? What do you need? That was the first question. This is not complicated. She doesn't serve him, but she wants to do everything in her power to give him the resources he needs to win. And so, yeah, I think you're seeing a totally different dynamic.
Yeah, she's meeting the minimum expectations of a Big Ten athletic director who is frequently at football, pays attention to the program. And I think I saw someone else mention, this is an aside, but the social media part, she's been much more active on social media than Pat. That's a very minor thing, right? That's not going to win or lose games, but I think it's the continuation of her interacting with the fan base, making people feel part of the whole thing. It's a small thing that goes a long way. So it's just, many examples of things that she's doing differently than Pat. And I think most of us agree in a positive way, for the better.
Yeah. This is not going to be an earth-shattering statement, but being around the football program as much as we have been the last 3 years, you felt how isolated and in a silo Greg Schiano's program was in the rest of the Rutgers universe. It's very clear that within the first week of Kelly Zinn taking the role as athletic director, that silo, the walls came down. It's so fundamentally sound that the biggest program at Rutgers is now the focal point, and I think that's how it's got to be, and you can see that almost immediately.
Yeah, two sneaky things Kelly Zinn did that early on that are good, right? Well, one's not sneaky, one's pretty obvious, but the sneaky thing is that I see her embracing small donors and talking to people like Pat Hobbs, and I've heard this from so many people who are in that little level, the middle range level, not the big guys, the big guns, the big money, that Pat Hobbs ignored them. And I think we've already seen Amy Towers. I've seen pictures with her and some people who, I recognize to be, middle rung donors. I think that's really important. Number one. Number two, her first hire was, and we haven't talked about it yet, bringing in a chief revenue officer, bringing in someone from Ohio State, bringing in another name that I'm going to murder, Todd Neasley. Is that, maybe I won't murder? Is that correct? Yeah. Another guy, someone she's worked with in the past who has that background. Like we've talked about structure and how the Rutgers went out and tried to hire the fundraiser at the top of the pyramid. Well, like this is just as good. Like, having someone who can run the athletic department and then hire someone they trust to be the chief revenue officer and run that stuff. Like it's another good thing that you're seeing that just makes a lot of sense and did it right away. Like no wasting time. We're not even a month in and Kelly's in identified that as the first hire she had to make.
She told us that was her priority, right? And she got it done. So she is at least early on fulfilling her promises. I think two quick things on that. One, and this is Reed Zach gets a lot of shit, for lack of a better word. The guy is kind of a victim of the circumstance, right? But Pat Hobbs hires a guy from Altius to check a box to say, look, we're addressing NIL. We have an NIL GM. Kelly Zinn comes in, and he did that after people were saying he did nothing about NIL. It seemed like he just kind of did it. Here, this is something I'm doing. Kelly Zinn made it her priority to hire a guy who was at the head of maximizing the brand of one of the best brands in college football and an athletic department that I believe leads the nation in revenue generated over the last few years. So this is not only a person who's experienced, who she has worked with and knows can do the job, but has experience being in one of the elite athletic departments in the country. That doesn't mean he's going to turn the block R into the block O, right? There's a big gap there to fill, but it does feel like, again, much like Kelly Zinn, there's an adult in the room who will know what to do and what to try. And if it doesn't work out, it's not because of incompetence. It's because it just didn't work out. So again, a positive sign. I'm excited to see who else she's going to hire, what other roles she's going to fill, and what the rest of the shape of the athletic department looks like. This is a positive first step.
All right. Those are all the questions we got this week. Thanks for doing it. Predictions. We're ready to make some picks. Our picks brought to you by the Heldridge Hotel. Nice little plug there. Pat, I got to ask you, do you have any regrets? You got some regrets? Or do you, so this is good. Are you a glass half full guy where you're like, hey, look, I mean, I got the pick correct against the spread. Or are you like, I picked Ohio to win, they didn't win. Which way do you look at this last week?
I always feel as a member of the media, it's our job to listen and interpret those thoughts to the general public. And I thought I accurately listened to what Greg Schiano was saying and laid it out for you with my pick. Do I have a regret that Ohio didn't win? No, like it was accurate. Everything I said was accurate. Except people would people be egging my house right now if Ohio won? Probably because Politi doxes me every time on this podcast. So yeah, I do. I don't have any regrets about the pick.
You just live in my hometown. I mention that every single chance I get. That's not doxing. I didn't give your address,
Yeah. All right.
Not yet, at least.
Okay. Anyway, no, I don't have any regrets. I thought it was a great pick. And sometimes I've always taken this approach going back to high school football. It's not always so bad to be different and go out on a limb every now and then. So I thought that was a great opportunity to do that. And I thought in hindsight, it was pretty accurate.
Right. Yeah. You got it. You got it against the spread. You didn't get it straight up. Only one of us got it exactly right. The same person who won last year.
Shocking. Vet.
Sorry. And Fonseca was the word I'm looking for is wrong. So he is down. He's 0-1. Pat and I are 1-0. Miami, it's again 14.5. Is that the spread that we're going with?
Correct.
Okay. All right. You want me to go first again? Because I'm leading. Technically, I'll go first again. This 14.5 doesn't bother me. Put it that way. This I'm looking like, okay. Yeah, I'm not last time I saw that last week, I was like, well, that's way too many points. This time I don't feel that way. I think Miami is not the same level as Ohio. They're not going to be able to score against Rutgers. And I really do believe that that this Rutgers offense will score against any MAC defense you put out there. I think I think you're going to see another good output from the offense. I think Rutgers is going to win this game easily, like a 37-10 kind of day for the Scarlet Knights.
I agree with you totally. I think Rutgers offense is going to have a monster game again, and the defense is going to be better. I'll keep it short and simple this week. I don't have any spoilers, no controversy. Rutgers wins pretty comfortably, 40-20.
I should have mentioned this before. The over-under that I saw before we recorded this was between 46 and 48. I was going to cut it down the middle, make it 47.5. I don't know if that impacts your picks, Blady, because you picked 47 on the dot, but you have the under.
That is an under. Wow. Okay. Yeah, no, I'm still going to go. I'm going to stick with it. I don't want to change my numbers.
Fair enough. I think this will be a little bit different, or roughly the same as the Wisconsin game. I think Miami might actually get on the scoreboard, right? I think Rutgers will score a little bit more than Wisconsin. I think Rutgers will comfortably win this game. And I don't know if it'll be quite AJ Suray's time quite yet. I don't think it's going to be that big of a blowout, but I do think some backups are going to get some chances in the fourth quarter. I'll say Rutgers wins 31-7.
Okay, so we're all picking the Scarlet Knights to cover this week. There will be no blood in the standings. We'll see if we're right. I just don't feel like this is going to be a stressful day for you folks in Piscataway. Bonus question, though. We haven't done the alumni game this year, but can you name which U.S. president went to Miami of Ohio? Got one. It's not one you just rattle off the top of your head. But I'll give you a clue. It's a good clue. Has a significant similarity to Joe Biden. There you go.
I won't make a joke about Joe Biden, even though I really want to.
Don't make it. No, don't do it.
I don't want to split our loyal audience.
So
ironically, it's not Grover Cleveland, who was from New Jersey.
But there's a connection there. No, but there's a Grover Cleveland connection here too. Yes, that is, you're on the right track with Grover Cleveland did something to this president that happened to Joe Biden.
Whoa.
Is it Teddy Roosevelt?
Nope, not Teddy Roosevelt. Pat, you got a guess?
Calvin Coolidge?
Prior to Joe Biden, prior to Grover Cleveland, prior to Donald Trump, there was only one president who served non-consecutive terms. It was Grover Cleveland. This president was between him, Benjamin Harrison, folks. There you go, Benjamin Harrison.
There you go. Interesting.
Love it. Old times, we just look like idiots, and that's what it's all about.
Know. It's good. It's a hard one.
That was a hard one.
It's a hard one. All right. What else we got? Anything going on? Has Rutgers lost a game in the Kelly's Inn area yet?
They have. Volleyball lost 2 matches this weekend to Buffalo and Liberty. So
Ooh, that's not good news.
Yeah, it's not. They're not exactly powerhouses of the volleyball community either. But
yeah.
Well, other than that, though, when soccer had a big weekend, 2 4-1 wins against James Madison and William and Mary. The state of Virginia can go take a walk, kick rocks, because Rutgers men's soccer is dominating. I think they're both from Virginia. I'm gonna look like an idiot if they're not.
They're both.
Women's soccer remains undefeated. Field hockey, big win over Wagner to start the year. And I think that's all. So essentially every team is undefeated except for volleyball, which if we had to make a guess of which team would suffer the first loss of the year, I think we'd all have picked them, right? So no surprises.
All right, I got a minor beef now I got to bring up on the podcast.
Ooh.
We may have one opportunity this whole year to drop a Swagner line, and Brian didn't do it. That was our golden opportunity. Swagner was back on campus.
Really?
Brutal.
Who did Swagner play?
Field hockey.
Oh, man.
And I was talking about it, and I didn't say Swagner. I beefed up. My bad.
They beefed up. You're all in one on this podcast.
Minor beef.
All right, let's wrap it up there, fellas. We will be back after the game to recap it. Thanks for listening.